What's going on, everybody? It's your man Chuck Creekmur, aka Jigsaw. All hip hop is in the building with a legend in the virtual building with a legend, P. Frank Williams, who is the director of the new and possibly controversial movie documentary Freaknik, the greatest party never told.
The Wildest Party Never Told.
Wildest party, my fault.
Yeah.
I said the greatest because I was I might have
You
been
was for the streets, back, Chuck.
I might have been there. perhaps, perhaps.
I love it.
First things first, man. What was the what was one of the challenges you faced telling this story?
Well, no, I think that I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just for a party documentary. I think a lot of people thought it was about the turn up and the streets and the girls and all of that. I wanted to show a much more nuanced, layered story, which hopefully everybody saw that it's a history lesson of sorts. And I think I wanted to unpack all of that. So I think one of the biggest hurdles is just the stereotypes and the negative stuff about Freaknik, which a lot of people don't realize there was a lot more positive as well.
Yeah, you had the founders of Freaknik, and I honestly didn't know there were founders and people that started very innocently with this spring break event. How did you locate them? Did you even know about those people? Like, how did you even
Well, no, I
discover?
mean, I knew about them obviously through research, and we have a researcher working, and I knew some people who came from the AUC back in those days, and so I knew that there was a real origin story. As I began to talk about people, it's like you got to talk about the DC Metro Club. So we knew that there was an origin story, and it was important for me to educate people who thought it was just a street party that was really sort of this oasis and this place of Black joy for these students who never weren't included in the Daytonas and stuff like that. So they created their own thing. Typical Black people, for us, by us, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, I noticed one thing, the name spelling changes throughout the doc. Sometimes it has Freak Nick with a C and sometimes with a K. I was just curious, why was that like that?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different lore about why that happened. Initially, it was because, as you saw in the film, Freak was a dance back in the day, and they merged it with Picnic, so there was a C. Later on, probably in the early 90s, mid 90s or so, it started being used with a K.
Yep.
And I think some Kappas that I know think that they, with the K, brought the K. Other people thought people started just spelling it wrong on their own. But it is initially, by the way, with a C is the way that it really started out. The K just sort of came around later on.
Got it. So here's a two-part question. It seems to me like this is also a love letter to Atlanta. It feels it's got a lot of history in there. Even not just hip hop and things of that nature, but you go back to the various mayors and government and the affluence, everything. At the same time, it seems like you just mentioned the DC Metro Club and things like there was also this hodgepodge of other cultures as well that were a part of it. Even the rappers, Biggie is in there, Eric Sermon's prominently, Luke as well. Luke is from Miami.
Mhm.
Um, how do what are your thoughts on that, and how does this sort of all coalesce into this one, huge party, this wild
Well,
party?
I think that, Atlanta was the backdrop for a lot of us in the 90s. It was sort of a coming of age place where a lot of the rappers from that time, we call it the golden era from hip hop, came
Mhm,
down to Atlanta, whether it be Puff, Little Kim,
mhm.
Big, or whoever else, Outkast who were natives. Outkast got their start essentially because of the help of Freaknik. I think Freaknik was sort of the foundation where a lot of these people can go get music. I mean, you've been in hip hop for a long time. Imagine hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of New York City, and you are a promoter or you got a new album. You got a place literally to promote all of that music. And so if you were an artist back then, you had to be at Freaknik if you was trying to get, I mean, Souls of Mischief was telling me stories about how they were out there and they were on a promo tour and that kind of thing. So again, and I want to make sure people realize that Freaknik is a music documentary.
Mm.
It's about culture and all that, but at the heart of it, it's about the music. And without the music, which fueled the whole movement, there is no Freaknik.
Yeah, definitely. You also talk about when it went south. When it no metaphor, no pun intended, but it started to go downhill, and I think that's sort of when I you know was part of it, and I would bear witness to when it got a certain time of the night, it was savage. I hate to use those terms around black folks, but it was it was crazy, and I was a guy, so looking at the women, that was tough to witness, and also tough to watch. One young lady in particular really discuss her ordeal. And I know she's one of probably many. How did you deal with that as a man, as a human actually?
Well, I mean, I think I want to make sure that we didn't ignore that. You know, I always try to tell the truth in whatever I do since the beginning of getting into the culture. And so I think sometimes hard discussions are things that you have to have. And as African American people, young people, we needed to have that discussion that some of the brothers there were totally inappropriate. Some were assaulting women, some were raping women. And so the only way through is through. And so I didn't want to ignore that. And it was important for us to make that point and not ignore it and talk about why it ended. So hopefully we did that in a way that was truthful and respectful to the actual content, you know?
Yeah. Were there any people that you couldn't or didn't get in this documentary that you wanted?
Um, You know, there's some celebrities or whoever I think who had some really great stories that we really wanted to get in. But I think that we did a really good job of the people like Luke who were
Mm,
there, you know what I mean? Little John, Shanti Das, different people, Killer Mike. I did try to get Bill Campbell, who was the mayor of Atlanta, who I think was a voice that was missing. We ended up getting Kasim Reed, but I did try to get Bill Campbell, and unfortunately it didn't work out. The mayor who was mayor at that time.
yeah. Did you have any legal challenges? There was a lot of, it went viral quite a bit. You know, older heads and aunties now talking about, I don't want to be in this, and also some who were like, "Yo, I'm letting you know, I'm in this." How did you face those challenges? How did you deal with that?
Well, first of all, let me say this just so people know legally. If you go outside right now and dance in the street in your underwear, you are not protected by law. Anything
Mm,
that you do in the public space is, all bets are off. So
mhm,
you could say, hey, you can't, you try to stop a documentary or you're going to stop the producers. You can't do that. If you do something in your house, that's a private place. So there was no legal battles to hurdle or nothing like that. That's just like sensational media BS. So
mhm.
no, there was, I mean, obviously we don't want to, making sure people aren't portrayed in a negative light, people having sex or anything that was really egregious, we wouldn't do. But no, there were no legal hurdles.
Did you take care? I mean, you just kind of answered that, but did you leave some stuff on the cutting room floor that was like,
There
yeah,
was a bunch of inappropriate content that we didn't put out there, and some
yeah,
stuff that didn't fit. Um, and we try to be respectful of the culture and the content, but also we only have so much time in the documentary. So I mean, I guess everybody's asking me for the director's cut to see some of the raw stuff, but I'm not sure if that's appropriate for a Disney audience or Hulu audience.
yeah. That's true indeed. True indeed. Um, you recently, you and I have dealt with, we've been in the game for a minute. You have a new production company you're starting, and I love the name, and I love how it's also spelled, stylistically. Tell
Mhm.
us tell us a bit about it and why you started it at this
Well,
juncture.
no, I think obviously, as you mentioned, you and I've been in the culture for 25 plus years, from our magazine days to now. And, I've been blessed and fortunate to still be working through the culture as you are too, and making money and eating and living, feeding my family and doing what I love. But I have noticed that often, as a black male and dealing with a situation today that's egregious, it's tough to be sort of a general in the field for the culture and to deal with a lot of times with people who are producing content about people of color, but there's no people of color involved in producing it. It
Mhm.
results in a lot of sometimes negative stuff being put out and just battles of what is actually true and real. And so I think that for me, I want to make sure I do that. And oftentimes, unfortunately, there aren't enough people of color working on stories about them. And
Mhm.
so it's important for me to make sure I give those opportunities to those folks and just make more room for these great stories to be told from young people and people like myself who actually lived it. So when I say for the culture, by the culture, you can just say for the culture, right? It's something
Mhm.
that's down for the culture. But when you say by the culture, means that it's an inside out. That means it's coming from the culture itself. So it's important for me to continue to tell those stories, whether sports, music, pop culture, things that I specialize in, true crime. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean that was the impetus. Myself, Jesse Collins, Ricky, whoever else you may see, Will Packer.
Mhm.
Keep Kenya Bears. I think that's the area that we want to continue to have these independent voices to make sure that we tell these stories.
Yeah. What, um, if any, challenges have you? I mean, you kind of answered that, but have you, ever decided not to work on a project because you said, this is not representative of what we should be doing? Like, for example, I've turned down a lot of speaking gigs or TV gigs because a certain network might want you to come on there and say certain things. Have you done that with any projects?
Well, no, I think it's a two-way street. I think that yes, there's been some challenges where people want to get me to say stereotypical things, or maybe a network or situation that may not be as knowledgeable or comforting to Black culture. But I'm the kind of person that, and I saw there was an argument on your Facebook or something like that a while back. We got to go in the room to have the discussion. We can't argue outside of the room because nothing will change. And so you could call it integration, you could call it whatever you like, but I do think that you need people in the room to move the culture forward. You know, to see Hove, doing the Super Bowl with the NFL, that makes sense because they want to do cool Black things. They need a cool Black guy to help them do it. And I'm sure he's in there telling them what the real is and not the BS. So yeah, man, I just try not to just run away from it. I try to embrace these situations and be a change creator.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
Yeah, I'm obviously promoting the Freaknik. I had a big show on TV One, a music show with Dougie Fresh, another project on Tubi, and hopefully we'll get Busta Rhymes out to you guys by the end of the year. 3 hour Busta Rhymes documentary
Oh,
on
nice.
Viacom with my brother Shaheem Reed. So
Okay, okay. I knew Shaheem was cooking. I
yeah.
know Shaheem is not slick, brother. We have to pull some of these archives of all hip hop out the boxes and all that and see what we got. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's good stuff. Buster is he's a legend. How was it working with him?
Well, still going through the process, but it has been green lit. And Busta's obviously Busta Rhymes. He's an iconic legend. He's a one of the most important figures in the history of hip hop and pop culture, period. And so I'm blessed, and technically, and he is what the culture is about. If you look in the dictionary about great hip hop artists, it got to be a picture of
Yeah.
Busta Rhymes. So I'm excited to work with my brother, who I've known for 20 plus years, and excited to bring it to everybody.
Nice, nice. All right, man. Any final words about Freaknik
Well, I'm
or
glad that
anything?
everybody is enjoying the Freaknik ride. It is a documentary about Black joy. It's a Black celebration of young Black people who the world didn't make a place, so they made their own place. And I hope that more young people of today are inspired by what they did. And also, I think one thing I'd say is that I urge people to be in the moment. You never know what's going to happen next or whatever. And one of the things that these young people at Freaknik, they wasn't, let me take a selfie, let me take a video. They were actually in the moment,
Yeah,
enjoying it. And so I hope that that's one of the things that people take away. Black joy, Black freedom, Black liberation, and just being in the moment and enjoying it. Because, imagine Freaknik today. I don't think we could have it, but it was a good time.
it wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't. And
Right.
I see in the doc, it does have the current rights holder, kind of turning it into something different, but not certainly the Freaknik of old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, my brother.
All right, brother. Peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.